Hi, folks. Thanks so much for joining tonight's call. We're really excited to just share about this year's Conservation Opportunity Fund. So this session is really designed to be pretty interactive. So if you're comfortable, you can feel free to turn on your camera. And we're going to get started. But just wanted to start by welcoming everyone, and then we'll hand it over to some introductions as well. So really just want to take the time to introduce ourselves. So we'll really just start from the district side of things. My name's Bené Hershon. I'm the district manager. And if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Nina, and just introduce yourself and your role.
Yeah, my name is Nina Bronwyn, and I'm the Community Engagement and Communications Coordinator at Cheshire County Conservation District.
And we'd love to invite you all to, if whether it's unmuting yourself and sharing your name, the town that you're coming from in our county, why you're interested in the opportunity, or if you're representing an organization. And we'd also love to know how you heard about this grant opportunity. So you can feel free to unmute yourself and share that, or you can also feel free to enter that into the chat. And introductions just really help us better gauge where folks are coming from so we can kind of tailor our info session to your interests today.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bill Rodenberg. I'm from Walpole and I'm on the mailing list. So that's how I heard.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining, Bill.
Good evening.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I'm Mike Scardina. I heard about you guys at one of the fairs in Keene, New Hampshire. I don't remember which one now. And then my wife and I started working with Facet Nursery to get rid of some invasive plants and put in some more native stuff. And they mentioned you guys in the grant program. So just here to learn more about it.
That's awesome. Well, we're big fans of Facet. They do great work. So it sounds like you're already like in the right direction. So I'm glad that you're joining tonight. And Shelly, I didn't know if you wanted to unmute or just to introduce yourself in the chat. You can feel free to do so.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
So I am gonna stay off audio and video for the rest of the call only because my 6-month-old and 2.5-year-old are here and I'm on my own with them, so I
That
don't want
is
to be
totally fair.
distracting. But I wanted to join tonight because I am interested in doing some work on my own property. I live in Alstead, and I was told about the grant from Mike at Distant Hill in Walpole. So yeah, so excited to hear more about it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear we have some folks geographically from all over the county, which is really exciting to hear. And also, everyone heard about this grant opportunity through a wonderful district-related connection. So that makes us really happy too. But I will get, just to get things started, I'm going to hand things over to Nina. And Nina, if you want to take it away and just provide some background on the fund.
Yeah, thank you. So the mission of the Conservation Opportunity Fund, or COF, is to provide funding for stewards of small tracts of land who are interested in improving wildlife habitat on their property. COF reimburses project costs. So this means that you will need to upfront the cost and then we'll reimburse at the completion of your project. And then planning, design, and installation is the responsibility of the landowners or any contracts they may hire for installation or consultation, etc. CCCD staff can help provide technical assistance, resources, and answer application questions or run through ideas with you, but we do not design or install projects. So the eligibility requirements for this grant are for private landowners or stewards in Cheshire County, New Hampshire. Priority funding will go towards projects with an emphasis on community engagement. Landowners in Cheshire County, New Hampshire with site security. So an example would be like a long-term lease or ownership. And then tracts of land, 25 acres or less total. This does include individuals, businesses, organizations, municipalities, religious organizations, farmers, and forest landowners. So I'm going to run through a few examples of eligible projects, one of which is an installation of a native pollinator habitat. So these are areas planted with native vegetation that provide nectar and pollen sources, as well as offer a low disturbance area for nesting and egg laying. Another example is like a conversion of your lawn or fields to native plant gardens. And then installation of rain gardens. So a rain garden is a depressed area of a landscape that collects the rainwater from a roof, driveway, or street and allows water to soak into that group. Rain gardens are planted with native perennials and shrubs and are important for managing stormwater runoff and improving the water quality. CCCD partnership with Soak Up the Rain New Hampshire allows for applicants to consult soak resources, which can be found linked on the grant page of our website. And this can also help create a really compelling proposal when you submit your application. And then the creation and maintenance of early successional habitat. So this is going to be old fields, shrublands, and young forests that are often referred to as early successional habitat. These are increasingly uncommon on the New Hampshire landscape and are important for a diversity of wildlife. And then finally, the creation of vegetated buffers on surface waters, so lakes, streams, etc. These are planted along water buffers with native trees, shrubs, and perennials to reduce erosion and improve water quality.
Awesome. Thanks so much for just going through that, Nina. And really, I think that the beauty of this grant program is that there's so much, I mean, we call it the Conservation Opportunity Fund for a reason. There's a lot of opportunity to be creative and to really tailor the grant to the different needs of your project. So just an overview of, how we will be prioritizing projects this year. So priority will be given to projects that follow application guidelines, have a detailed plan for site preparation, long-term maintenance, and sustainability. So that long-term maintenance piece is really important to us, especially for folks who may be applying from an organization, or if you're renting and have a long-term lease. We'd really like to hear how you plan to sustain the project. So really considering the future costs and time. And, I think it's important to just say, like, while we do provide that 1,500 as a reimbursement, often down the line, these gardens are going to require costs in the future, such as replacing plants from year to year, maybe like purchasing additional mulch, things of that nature. We also are prioritizing projects that really demonstrate landowner input of time and resources. So I think it goes without saying, things are very expensive. It's more likely than not that your project total cost is going to exceed what our grant can provide in most cases. We also prioritize projects that are really informed by the ecology of our region. And I would say the most important part of this grant is the emphasis on learning and education. So we are really excited about projects that provide opportunities for our organization to partner with yourself, with your organization, whoever you may be applying from or for, to really offer that community education piece. And, we'll jump in a little bit more on what that means as well. So non-eligible projects would be any projects that have already been installed or are in progress. So if you put in a garden last year and it was in line with this grant, unfortunately, you can't apply for funding at this time. We also ask that if you have been a successful grantee in the past or from previous years, that you wait 2 years before applying again for the grant. So funding will not be provided for landowner time. We don't fund research or feasibility studies. We want a project with a proven track record of success. And we also will not fund any efforts that won't lead to improved wildlife habitat. So for our funding, awards no greater than $1,500 will be considered. And as Nina mentioned earlier, all of our grants are through reimbursement. So at the completion of the project, if you're a successful awardee, you're going to submit this really great final report document. You can see examples of it on our website, but also we provide that upon, award notification. And we just ask that you really keep track of all of your receipts. And those receipts and invoices are essential to provide to us, as well as photos of your project as well. We'll also ask you to submit a record of the funds that you spent completing the project that weren't covered by the grant, just so that we can have a better understanding of really what went into the project. It helps us see the full picture and scope of work, but it also helps us get a better understanding for future grant rounds and grant offerings. And, maybe down the line, $1,500, we might have to increase that amount, or, things like that, just to, we like to keep up with the times at the conservation district. So all of that information is really helpful. So just an overview of this year's timeline. Our proposals are going to be due February 1st. From February 1st to 28th is when our application review committee meets. And during that time, you may be contacted for additional information or any clarifying questions. And you'll be notified at the latest by March 15th. And then your final report will be the deadline is December 31st. So often when we have folks brainstorming their project, we really want you to keep in mind that it's really only like that March to December timeframe. And like, let's be honest, we're in New Hampshire. It's even a shorter time frame with the winter that we have. Or I feel like we might be in for quite the winter this year, but who's to say? So really just keeping the idea of a realistic project in mind. Often we get folks who have such amazing ideas, but making sure to be realistic of what you can accomplish in that time frame. And just a note on that community engagement component that we mentioned earlier, what we would really love to see through your project is, educating folks as to why native habitat is so important in our region. That could be having signage in front of your garden, sharing your project with neighbors, inviting the district to host a workshop on your property if you're comfortable with that. It could also be writing a blog post. Nina curates all of our monthly blogs and newsletters, and would be thrilled to share what you've been doing for your project. So we really just like to focus on that educational piece because we know, well, I think last year maybe we funded 9 projects. We were able to really expand the reach of those projects through the collaboration that we had with those awardees, whether it was us hosting a tour of their property, or even, a really detailed blog post that Nina shares on the website. And we ask you to be creative about it. We have some ideas of what education looks like, but, maybe you're involved in like your town conservation commission. Maybe you're involved in another volunteer group and you'd like to do a presentation on your project with them, or, share at the local library. We had a grant recipient last year who did a project on his property, and he was in Dublin, and he did a great presentation on his rain garden at the library and had a great turnout. So just something to really keep in mind, that educational piece. Alrighty, so what to include in your proposal? So we try to make our grant applications as user-friendly as possible. We don't expect you to be an expert grant writer, but we really want to hear your story. So in your project narrative, it's really important to emphasize your project and your goals and to clearly state those. For your budget, making sure to create a detailed budget as possible. And I would say browse online, request quotes from relevant services. If you're looking at local nurseries, contact them for a quote. And honestly, the sooner the better, because oftentimes it can take time to hear back from contractors and things of that nature. And this is really the time to think about the plant materials and the site preparation materials, and what you're really going to need for your project. We also ask for you to create a hand-drawn or digital map of your plan. So that can be a really simple, like, drawing of like your front yard and like a circle of where you hope the garden will be. And it would just help us to better understand the layout. Sometimes people go on Google Maps, they take a screenshot of their property, and they print it out and they draw on top of it. So we don't expect you to be a cartographer, or a GIS like web expert, but really just getting a better understanding of what the site looks like, and also submitting 1 to 2 photos of the site as well. And we know that there might be snow in the photo, but I think we're getting some rain this weekend. So if the snow clears away, that could be a really good opportunity to get a photo of your site as well. We also have some really excellent resources on our Conservation Opportunity Fund page. You can see examples of past projects. You can see resources for local nurseries, local places to buy soil, mulch, things of that nature. We have a past awardee who created a whole list of all of the plants that are native to our region, when they bloom. Other considerations, like if they do well in wet soil or dry soil. So I would really just take your time and look through those resources because those are going to be really valuable to you. Making sure that you really research your budget and plan, and make sure to note your research in your application. Like, let us know that you took time to look it up, and you could literally just write, like, I spent X amount of hours speaking with Facet Farm, or I read it in this book, or I read in this article. Just letting us know the work that you put in. And you can feel free to contact Nina or myself with any clarifying questions for your application. If it's before that February 1st deadline and well before it, and you're ready to submit, you can feel free to send us a rough draft, and we'd be happy to review and offer feedback as well. So just an overview of like what the questions look like on the application, and you'll all see this online as well. For the project narrative, we ask you to briefly describe your project. We ask for your expected outcomes. So that's really what are the results that you hope for. We want to know what the activities and tasks you'll complete to reach your outcomes. And we also ask you to provide details on the site preparation that will be necessary for any planting projects. So if it's easier for you to do a detailed bulleted list of that, that is more than fine. If it makes sense to write it in a paragraph format, that's great. But we also ask you to include as much detail, but also to keep it concise, and to note the word maximums as well. So these are just more of the questions from the application. So we want to know like what guidance would be helpful for you. Any of our awardees who receive this grant, once we notify you of receiving the grant, a team from the Conservation District will actually come to your property, and we will provide a technical assistance meeting to see the site before you start, to answer any questions that you have, and to provide that technical assistance. So if it's, if you're trying to figure out, like, I don't know, like where exactly on my lawn it would make sense to put it, or let's say you're doing a rain garden and you're not sure like how deep you have to dig, like these are all things that you can note in this space. Excuse me. I seem to have caught whatever is going around town. And we also ask you to briefly describe what skills and resources that you have to successfully complete the project. Maybe you're a master gardener. Maybe you've worked on a similar project before. So that's just really helpful background for us. We want to know your plan for long-term maintenance and sustainability, how you're going to keep the project going after that initial payment. And obviously, as I said before, we're really intrigued to hear about the educational aspect of the project as well. Alrighty, well, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. So I'd love to just, offer this time to really answer any questions that you may all have, or if you have certain ideas that you'd like to brainstorm, Nina and I would be happy to really chat those through.
I did have a question. The PowerPoint you went through, is that something that we can find on your website, or is there somewhere we can get that information after the fact?
Yeah, definitely. So Nina is going to send a follow-up email to everyone who's attended today's session, and we will provide a PDF copy of the slides. And we are also recording today's session, so it will be available on YouTube as well.
Okay, and then the next question I had, we have a few projects planned, but one of them involved a maybe more hybrid, a combination of putting in fruit trees, which would not be native to this area, with other stuff that is native. Is it possible to write a grant for a project that kind of incorporates something like that, or are you guys kind of more focused on, a strictly all native setup?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are focused on a all native setup.
Okay, that's all
And
I had.
that's a great question because it's come up in every grant round and it just has to do with the funding for this grant. But totally fine if and I also just want to put it out there, well, we can't fund any projects that include non-native plants. That's all to say if your property has like non-native gardens, that's fine. But it just can't be a part of the project that you're installing through the grant dollars.
And that's fine because we have a few different zones of the lawn that need attention. So I'll just focus the grant on one where we are going all native as opposed to one where it's probably going to be more of a mix.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Oh, perfect. So, Shelly, that's a great question. So Shelly wrote in the chat, sorry if I missed this, but how many grants are awarded each year? Oops. Looks like I popped up the chat. So it's really a mix, Shelley. So some years, depending on the amount of application, it's really, I should back up and say it's really dependent on the amount of applications we get. Some years, we're able at minimum to fund about 6 projects. In some years, I think the most we've ever done in one grant round was 11. So it really ebbs and flows. We are really looking for strong proposals to fund. And so if we have the funding available, and we also have a really strong pool of applicants, we might be able to accommodate more as well. Yeah, so unfortunately, there's not like a set number, with each grant round that we offer. Any other questions? I'm curious, like, what are folks thinking of doing for their project this year?
Um, Hi, Bill from Walpole again. Uh, my wife and I have done a lot as far as trying to manage our property to encourage pollinators and such. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit instead of just, essentially mowing to encourage things like milkweed and whatnot. I'd like to start planting some things that will attract additional pollinators and hopefully expand on what we've got going with the native milkweed, et cetera.
That's awesome. And that sounds like you found the right grant opportunity to meet that need. And as whether it's like a pollinator garden, if you guys want to do like a mini meadow, just feel free to contact Nina or I as you're brainstorming and like honing down exactly what you want to do. But I would really encourage you, Bill, when Nina sends the follow-up. There have been some really great projects that I think could be a really good fit. And could be similar to what you might be interested in applying for. Um,
Okay.
and you'll see those outlined on our website page. The one that I'm thinking about in particular is there's a blog post highlighted on that page. Um, there was a project that, gosh, I think they were in Swansea. The Zeman family did a really beautiful pollinator garden. And it's, full of milkweed, just like had a really nice mix of pollinators as well. And they actually outlined all of the plants that they used as well. So it may be worth taking a look at, when we send out that link.
Cool. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and Kathy, I know that you joined our call a little later, and I hate to put you on the spot, but you can feel free to share in the chat or unmute if you have any questions or wanted to brainstorm any project ideas. Well, oh,
Uh,
sorry about
Hi.
that. Yeah,
Sorry. Just
hello.
figured out how to unmute. Yeah, I tried to submit a proposal last year, and I think I asked for the wrong thing. My The property we bought here a couple years ago has a very large backyard that is a very large it's kind of a wild meadow. Most of it, the wildlife loves it. I refused to let it be mowed for the first year that we were here because I wanted to see what was going on in it. And I'm delighted. I recorded a number of, as many different species of flora and fauna that I could. I tried to identify them. Some I was capable of identifying, some I wasn't. Insects are really hard, and plants. Um, we have a pond in the back. I do believe it is a large natural pond, and I want to, so I want to make a um, kind of a walkable pollinator meadow. It's got some slope areas. There's woods in the back, so we've got a bunch of, there's wetlands surrounding it. We've got a bunch of different habitats, and I'm delighted by the wildlife that exists. But prior to us moving here, it was curated, and I want to rewild some spots while allowing for human beings to walk through the property, and observe. You know what I mean? So there's paths. I've been trying to mow paths, and I think last year I submitted a proposal for getting a very low, informal sort of fence sort of thing that looked nice and wild, but fence was not allowed. The critical thing is that I need some kind of fencing to define those paths because my husband is a maniac on the mower. And he will mow if I don't, I think he's a little bit on the spectrum, and he will mow if I don't specifically outline where those human paths need to go. And so I have a plan for I'm thinking about 3 to 5% of the area is going to be human walkable, and the rest is going to be wilded. I also I want to see what I can do for nighttime pollinators and nighttime wildlife. So I would like to talk to you later about maybe that would be my focus. I am involved with the local conservation group. I've been to many of their presentations, never thought about giving one to them, but I certainly could. I have done presentations before. I used to be in human resources, so that comes easy. Um, I don't know. Is there anything that you can think of that, am I on the wrong track? Am I on the right track? I also am very concerned about the invasives that are here, and I want to get together a plan for how to manage them, not just do something about them now, which is part of my plan, but also how to sort of deal with 2 acres of potential invasives.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, Kathy, I think I recall your application. Are you based in Ridge?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so unfortunately, the fencing would not be an allowable expense for the grant. So I would say if you're interested in putting in a pollinator meadow, cons I would say to give a lot of consideration if you could do the fencing, funding that privately.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I
I
know,
got that from last year. I kind of figured, okay, this is never, this isn't part of it.
yeah.
So
Well,
I'll do that. But what of that? I mean, it's a meadow, so there's not like it's like it's huge. What could I do that would be concise enough to be a quote unquote project, a project?
yeah, so I think once you determine how much fencing you could use to cap off that boundary for mowing, I would say from there, you know, what a lot of folks do with meadows is that they either do a variety of native plugs, but often they're also purchasing native seeds and broadcasting the seeds into the field. And that's the common thing that we see with those meadows is that they define like a meadow area. So instead of what I would say is like 2 acres can seem like a lot up front. And I'll be honest, that's a huge conservation opportunity fund project to do, I think, in the time frame. Um, if you wanted to personally like cap off a certain edge of the field, maybe like a half acre or a quarter acre, I think that could be a little bit more realistic. And what would be an allowable expense there would be, native plant seeds. It could be if you wanted to also like put some plugs in. So that's my initial thought with that. With the walking pathways, we're all for that. If you wanted to put in pathways, what we can't do is like, if you wanted like stone walkways, we wouldn't be able to fund that. Um, if you wanted to mulch walkways, we're not really in the business of funding walkways. But any of the, if I think just the fact that you want to encourage folks to really enjoy that landscape and to learn about it, that could be like I think a really compelling part of your proposal. But I would say, Kathy, like think through how much fencing you could do this year. And then from there, really assess how much meadow you want to do. Instead of I would hate for you to bite off more than you could chew. And you can feel free to reach out to Nina or myself, and we can just kind of keep the conversation going offline. But it sounds like it could be a really good fit for a pollinator meadow. I think as you said, the issue was last year, the fencing is just not an allowable expense, unfortunately.
So I have some areas that I put down cardboard, and I brought in a mix of half and half compost and mulch, from the local um, I don't know, landscape supplier or whatever. And I put those down to basically, because it's almost impossible to do that much digging. So I set up the bed areas, but I put in some annuals temporarily. I mean, just here and there. It's really kind of naked, with the plan that in the future I'm going to really uh, dense plant like they do at Facet Farms Nursery.
Yeah.
Would one of those areas, would that be legit? Development of one of those areas that's already uh dirted, so the dirt killed all of
Yeah.
the
So
the
like
the
you've done
viney stuff on the ground.
So you've like already done the site prep there, right?
I've done the prep, right? Well, if you call it prep, I've put down the cardboard. It's been there for a year and a half, and compost, and it looks really naked.
Yeah. I think, considering it's not like you purchased like it's not like you purchase like cardboard and it's more that that field is just ready to be planted. So I think that would be a great area to do it. Our thing with like not funding projects that are already in progress, by that we mean like if you tarped like a field, like we couldn't reimburse you for the cost of the tarp. If you
So
put,
yeah,
so that's kind of what we're getting at with our
yeah.
grant outline. Like, if you put in a garden last year, you can't apply for that for this year for funding. But it sounds like that could be a really great site. And I also see Bill put in the chat, what about accessible walkways? Unfortunately, we can't fund walkways. But another thing, Kathy, is if like for this grant round, let's say the cardboard didn't do exactly what you wanted to accomplish, or you wanted to expand that area a little bit more, you could also apply like silage tarps to kill and suppress any weeds. That could be an allowable expense. And you could say, my plan is to tarp X amount of this field, and this is how much the tarps cost. I'd like to purchase this amount of seeds and plugs and do like a dense planting and like this amount of compost. All of that would be an allowable expense.
Okay. Um, I'm I'm not sure that how I feel about the seeds. I kind of feel like that's not an effective way to get the meadow,
Yeah.
unless I really mowed it down to as close to the ground as possible. How will those seeds actually get where they need to go?
Yeah, it's tough. And like we find that with most of these projects that plugs are like small plants and shrubs, native ones, that's the most effective use. Obviously, that's more expensive. And if you're looking to cover a really large area, I would suggest consulting with Facet Farm, asking what they would recommend, getting a price from them, and including that in your proposal.
Okay. Yeah, I've talked to Facet and to Michelle Chalice.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I did that. And it was very educational. I recommend it. It opened up some opportunities, and also one of the things that Aaron from Facet told me from the beginning is pick a spot to start with. Don't look at the whole thing and try to do it all at once. So just pick a spot and start there. So just kind of what you were saying earlier.
yeah, definitely. And like I think Kathy, just keep in touch with us, but like I think if you're not feeling like seeds would be a great fit, just going into this knowing that like it's just going to be, a more expensive project, but also it might be worth it because it's going to be more successful as well.
Yeah.
Uh so you're like very well connected. Michelle is fantastic, as is Aaron. So I would say if you wanted to just reach out to both of them for quotes, if you wanted to purchase materials through Facet, that would be fantastic to include in your application.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for coming back on and like for your continued interest in the grant. I'm really glad that you weren't deterred by last year's application and that you're thinking of applying again. That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, so thanks again for tuning in. And I see Shelly wrote an awesome message in the chat. We are all for collaboration. Please feel free to reach out to your local conservation commission. We really encourage that. Um, any other questions? I see. Oh, hello, George.
Hey, sorry I'm
Hey.
late.
No, you're good. How are
Okay,
you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Glad you were able to join.
Yes, thank you. So, the site I have in mind, it's a pretty sandy area, really low, soil fertility. And so, just in terms of sourcing plugs and seed
Yeah.
from wherever, so just keeping in mind, I guess, drought tolerance and then just fertility, adaptability. Who has been really keyed into those sort of concepts that people have worked with before?
Yeah, I would say I feel like I keep saying Facet Farm,
Okay,
but
Facet.
I
Okay.
would I would definitely reach out to Aaron at Facet, and I'm happy, George, if you wanted to like send a follow-up email, I'm happy to loop you in as well.
Yeah.
The really great thing about native plants that we have found through this grant is that they actually do really well in not great soil conditions.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's like a fantastic thing too. So I would say Facet is a great resource. The
Hmm.
other one that we often point people to is oh gosh, Native Plant Trust.
Okay.
Nasami Farm. I want to say they're in Whately, Mass, or a bordering town. So they're right in Western Mass, probably about like an hour drive from us.
Okay.
So they're another really good resource as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, and is this for Hooper?
Yes, so this would be at the North Walpole School. So that's it's just below Fall Mountain, and so it's just very, very sandy. And we're kind of incorporating it hopefully into like a buffer zone because there's a spot with a really good growth of pink lady slipper, and so that's been an issue with walkers and dirt bikers, unfortunately. So sort of
Oh, geez, yeah.
keeping that space protected, and hopefully people will see big piles of nice plants and not disturb a really cool rare wildflower. So
Totally. That's awesome. And I think
yeah.
it's great that you also have that school component. That's really exciting.
Yes, so it'd be a really good space for bringing students and doing plant identification, and then I think really good for insects as well. So
Yeah, that's
that's
great.
what I have in mind. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
awesome. And
Hey George,
Yeah,
have you spoken to Mike Neary up at Distant Hill? He might be able to give you some input as well.
I'm sure
Uh,
he would. That's yes.
he's surprisingly knowledgeable and comes up with some out of the box suggestions. He's
Oh
my
yeah,
neighbor,
yeah.
which is how I know him.
Yep,
But
definitely.
I thought he might be a good resource for you as well down there.
Mm-hmm. He would. So yes, he's just up the road. So yeah, definitely.
yeah,
And
and
they,
yeah, what's up,
oh,
Shelley?
no, sorry. I just have a really quick question about, I know you guys mentioned that only native plants are going to be considered for the project. Um, sorry. Um,
No, that's okay.
how does the group define a native plant? Because in a lot of the groups that I follow online, there's such heated debate on what's considered native. Is it only plants that are native specifically to New Hampshire or plants that are native to North America?
I would say plants that are native to New England. So,
Okay.
we know that there's like a lot of politics, surprisingly, with
Yes.
what is a native plant and what is not, and that
Yes.
there's also plants that have like naturalized to our region as well.
Hmm.
So we're really just encouraging folks. Like we had an applicant a few years ago who really wanted to plant trees that were actually like native to like Florida. That's kind of where we draw the line. We're like, that doesn't make sense. But like regionally, if they're native to the New England region, that's okay. It doesn't have to be that like hard line at New Hampshire and like the county level specifically. And if there's ever a question, if you ever like are looking for clarity, you can also feel free to just send us an email, give us a call, and we'd be happy to just, double check, just so that we can like cross the I's, sorry, dot the I's, cross the T's, and, just make sure that your application is looking good before you submit it. Any other questions? Well, I really just want to thank you all for spending like a portion of your evening with us. We know it's a really busy time of year, but it's exciting just to hear about the variety of projects that folks are thinking about. And I would just say we are always really happy to go through the application, to read it over before you submit. So I would just ask, try to get us a draft before a little bit before the end of January. Give us some time to read through it. And always happy to make any connections with folks that have, been mentioned. And like Aaron at Facet Farm, he's really tapped into this grant. He knows about it. Michael Neri is actually on the committee for this grant, so he really knows about it. So all of those folks are happy to work with members of the public and to answer any questions that they have as well. But Nina will be in touch just with the slides and some of the links that we mentioned today. But really looking forward to reviewing your proposals and just want to wish you all a happy holiday season and a healthy new year. And we can't wait to read your applications in the new year. And maybe spring will be here sooner than we all think.
Hope you're not holding
Cool.
your breath on that, Benay.
Yeah, I'll try not to, Bill. I think it's going to be a long winter. I have a feeling that
I'm
we're in for
I'm
one.
afraid so.
But I think we need it. So I think it's long
Oh gosh, yes.
overdue. Cool. Well, thank you all again. It was really fantastic just to see a lot of familiar faces and also meet some new ones. But Nina and I will stick on for a few minutes if anyone has any remaining questions. But if not, hope you have a lovely night. Thank you guys
Hey,
again.
thank
You.
thank
Thanks so
you.
Thank you
much.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night,